Welcome back, rum fans. In this video, I'm going to be sitting at the bar. We're going to be chatting about El Dorado, 12-year-old Guyanese rum, absolute beast of a rum in rum world. It's been well regarded for years and years and years. As I quite openly say, it's one of the first ever rums that I kind of drunk properly. Way back in 2003, I think it was. That's when sort of supply listings sort of opened up, and this Long Life Pampero Anniversario Angostura in 1919 were three of my very first rums that I listed at the bar I was at the time. So it's been around a long time. It has changed. This is not the rum that we used to drink back there. I'll come on to that in a bit. I'll also give you my thoughts on whether you should maybe spend a little bit more and upgrade on El Dorado 15 there over the 12. That's all coming up. But the first part of this, I actually kind of want to throw a little light over Guyana, DDL. DDL is Demerara Distillers Limited, and they are the guys that produce El Dorado. El Dorado is just one of their brands. Okay, El Dorado are not a distillery in their own right. It's a brand that DDL make, produce and sell worldwide. Okay, so the producers, DDL, Demerara Distillers Limited. You kind of have to remember that bit from where I'm going for the next bit. So what is becoming more and more apparent as people get more educated, as people start to ask more questions, is that a certain, and this has popped up in comments, has popped up on my Discord. If you're not in my Discord community yet, do come and join us. So there's a open bit that's free for everyone. There is a private members section. Obviously, you become a member by joining on my main channel. But yeah, do come and join us. The link will be in this description below. Loads of banter, loads of fun, loads of education in there. But anyway, let's get back to it. People naturally assume this. DDL have three famous stills: Port Morant, Versailles, Enmore. People, I dropped this bombshell as well. There's another 7, which I'll talk about in a minute. DDL actually have 10 stills, to my knowledge, that are in permanent full-time use. May not be full, like 7 days a week, but they do have 10 stills that are permanently on the go. I'll get to that in a bit in a minute. But people naturally assume, and have heard because of marketing, and it's not really spoken about, and brands do kind of like to jump on this. They don't directly say it, but they do play homage to the fact that Port Morant is the big famous one, which is the wooden double retort pot still. Okay, that's the big famous one they have. Port Morant. Everyone knows Port Morant. It produces what we would associate with those big, bold Guyanan vibes, Demerara rum vibes, all right? But they do have 2 other wooden stills that people don't automatically think they're wooden. Versailles is a single retort wooden pot still as well, and produces an almost similar, just, for me, I have tasted them. I've tasted them as the 40% versions of the single stills, and I have tasted them from another brand. I've never tasted the more expensive, I think they're 56% single still versions of that, of what El Dorado produce as a brand, okay? And I wasn't overly taken back by Versailles at 40 and Port Morant at 40. But Versailles is a single wooden pot still. Port Morant is the double retort pot still. But the other wooden still that they have is actually Enmore. Enmore coffee column still is actually wooden. And to me, that's actually my favourite one. Of all the ones I've tried, I actually do prefer Enmore, because it gives a sort of, even though it's lighter, it kind of is more what I would associate with El Dorado rums. Now, where am I going with this? The bit that kind of brands like to play on is Port Morant. Port Morant, as I say, is this famous double retort pot still. And people, we are told, we naturally assume that Port Morant gives you these big, bold flavours, which it does. But what no one ever talks about is the other 7 stills that are in permanent operation over at DDL. Now, these DDL produces a hell of a lot of rum, and I mean a hell of a lot of rum. They're one of the biggest producers of rum in the world. Go back, centuries. These stills have been decommissioned and then recommissioned again. Okay, they went out. They got moved from I forget how you say it now. It sort of looks like Utivlikt or something like that, but it's actually, I forget how it's that, something flot. I can never remember how you pronounce it, but these stills have been moved from other distilleries that DDL have bought up back into their main distillery now. Now, these 7 stills probably produce the vast majority of Guyanese rum. You've got 2, I've got to get this right, 2 4-column French Saval stills. 4 column, 2 of those, right? Massive things. They've got 3 coffee, so normal coffee, I think there might be copper, I don't know on this, but it's sort of metal anyway. 3 column coffee stills. Now, if you want to learn more about coffee stills, you can go and look at, I think the best place to get education on that is actually St Lucia Chairman's Reserve, because they do talk you about what the column coffee stills do. All right, so you've got those. You've also got the high ester still that DDL use, obviously, to produce rums of that higher ester. And all. Let me get on to the last one as well. And they've also got a 5-column rectifying still as well. And then the rectifying still, you can kind of think as your wash run, you know, the first run. Some rums will just come straight off that and be bottled, I dare say, but I think the vast majority of that rum would then get redistilled through another one of those stills. But the point I want to make and absolutely clarify here is that do not, just because you see a bottle of rum that has Guyana on the front, do not automatically assume that it has Port Morant in it. Because actually what Port Morant, Versailles and Enmore are, they are the vast majority in the blends of the El Dorado 8, even some of them the 5. The Enmore's got, I think, goes into the 5. I think I've got that right. But the Versailles and the Port Morant are definitely saved for the 8, the 12, the 15 and the 21-year-old, although one of them might not go into the 21-year-old. It's so complicated with these 10 stills, what they do. It's really hard to get your head around it. But my point being, there are certain rum brands and bottlers and blenders that, you know, they just market themselves on having Guyana rum. And because we know Port Morant really, really well, we just naturally assume, oh, they've got this wooden pot still rum in there to give it all that flavour, to give it all that. And actually, a lot of the time, it is kind of just those standard sort of French Saval column stills, or the coffee stills as well. So, and spiced rums in the UK are very guilty of this as well. It's Guyanese rum and you think, oh yeah, those 3 stills, you know, Port Morant, Versailles, Enmore, and the chances are they have never even been remotely close to those 3 stills that we know and love. They will have come off one of those sort of column stills. Now, that's not being a downer on DDL, on El Dorado, or anything at all. I just want to, and it's not even being a downer on rum brands that say they have Guyanese rum in them, you know, far from it. But I just want to be open, and from the knowledge that I have, and someone could take that knowledge and go even further down the line with it, but I just want to make it clear, you know, DDL have 10 stills, all right? All that rum just doesn't come off 3 stills. And don't forget, the other 2 famous stills that we know are wooden as well. So to recap, you've got Port Morant, which is the double retort wooden pot still. You've got Versailles, which is the single retort wooden pot still. And you've got Enmore, which is the wooden coffee column still. So all of those 3 produce rums that are a bit more robust, a bit more Demerara vibes, a bit more oomph than the other 7 stills, except for the high ester stills, so the other 6 stills, if you like, that DDL have. Now, with that in mind, this has been in my hand for a long time now. Let's talk about this. Now, if you're looking at this, they have, so this used to be quite sweet. We don't know the official sugar lines. I've seen various people say 40. I've seen various people say 35. I've never seen any less dosage in that, 35 grams per litre. We simply don't know because they don't give us the facts, but it used to be. Now, if you're looking for the difference, the label was different, but you can also see, I haven't got the close-up on there, but you see that little black bit there. That if you've got the bottle with the red one on there, the red one is the previous version. And I think it changed 2019, may have been 2020, may have even been before that, like 2018, late 2018, but I class it as 2019, 2020. So the sugar has been stripped away from this. Yes, this is still a fantastic rum, but it is not the same rum that I used to love and just rave about. But that's probably because my palate has changed as well. It's dried out. It's not as sweet as what it used to be. But with that, I don't enjoy this rum as much as what I used to. Let's just get a couple of things out of the way. In the UK, you're roughly talking, it does fluctuate a little bit, but you're roughly talking £38 in the UK. that is pretty much the benchmark. It's very rare you see it any cheaper than that, but I'm fully aware that in Europe, in the US, in Canada, it is so much cheaper. And hence why it gets the love it deserves, because at the price I have seen it in the US, in Canada especially, this rum is a bargain basement for those prices. But in 38, when we're talking sort of 37, 38 pounds in the UK, that is, I don't think, and I'll be brutally honest here, I think at that price point, I don't think it's now leaps and bounds above other rums at that same price. It's very good. It is a permanent restock, but it's not one of my favourite rums these days. And I think what's happened with them sort of stripping back the sugar from this is it's actually brought out more of the notes that I don't necessarily like from rum. For instance, the first nostrils I get off this, the first aroma is varnish, wood varnish by a long shot. I used to get rich, plump fruits. It used to be kind of giving me tropical vibes. Now it's completely the opposite way. Now it's like very woody, very polish. Might be nail varnish. Nail polish to a few of you, but varnish for me, sort of that wood. If you've just painted some wood with varnish, that's what I smell. I mean, there's a little bit of caramel and a little bit of vanilla on there. The woody notes are there, but it isn't as upfront and in your face as what it used to be, purely for me, because the sugar's been taken out, which amplifies those vanilla, amplifies those fruity notes. I really don't get tropical fruit from this anymore. And I think that's where I'm kind of feeling let down a little bit, because I used to love those vibes that I get. I wish those vibes were still there without the sugar. But for me, on the aroma, it's just not. It is just, reminiscent of a rum that I don't really like on the aroma. Now, on the taste, I'm going to have to pour myself some more in a sec. I do like the taste. It's gone from a rum that I used to have quite happily sort of a couple of on the night to one, but really enjoying that one. As I say, it's lost... It's still a little bit there, but it's lost the bulk of those fruity notes on the palate for me. If you swill it, if you kind of like just coat your mouth and your tongue and that with it, you still get a little bit, sort of dates and raisins. But I used to get tropical fruit from it. Now I simply don't anymore. I'm just topping myself up. The other notes I definitely get, kind of on like the second and third wave. Coffee and chocolate, that comes out in abundance for me on there. It has got a little bit of a peppery tingle, but not too much, not offensive. It's not going to put anyone off this. It's a solid rum. It is a solid rum. And I really do like it. It is not one of my out and out favourites these days. As I say, I would just love to have those sort of the tropical fruit vibes that I used to get off it, even though they've stripped back the sugar. The one thing I'd like to see, I do use Rumex quite a lot, purely for looking at other people's sort of tasting notes and facts that I can't find anywhere else. The one thing I would like to say, because you can look at the tasting notes on Rumex for this, and full well most of those tasting notes are from the old rum. They do. I've read them. I've got them in front of me here. Sweet, vanilla, caramel, coffee, dark chocolate. That's still there. Dried fruit, tropical fruit. All of those are tasting notes from the old bottling. They're just not there for me in this. As it lengthens out, the finish is almost tropical fruit, but it is more barrel aging, more coffee, chocolate, maybe mixed fruit, maybe that sort of raisin kind of vibe to it. And it's decent. For £38, 37, £38, it's a really, really decent sipper. I cannot deny that. Let's say there's nothing in there at all that offends me. I don't have to work at it. I don't have to, it's not a flavour journey. It's not a flavoured explosion. It's just to sit down and enjoy it kind of rum. Now, this is where we come on to the El Dorado 15. Because the 15 is just over 50 quid. And that's why I'm not going to get into the tasting notes of this. So you are sort of talking close to £15 extra over the El Dorado 12. Is it worth upgrading? Would you pick between one and the other at £15 difference? I don't know. I don't know where your heads are. If you're in the UK and you're spending £38 on that, is it and then another stretch to spend an extra £15 on that and enjoy that more? Or is that breaking the budget? I really don't know. But the El Dorado 15, it's really fascinating because, again, they have stripped the sugar back from this as well. I never used to like the 15. I used to always be, stay at the 12. You do not need the 15. You don't need the 21. I always used to be that. And I appreciate my palate has changed. But this is the rum now where I get those kind of tropical fruit vibes just on the nose. It's completely different nose. Those extra 3 years, and yes, there might be a different blend of stills that have gone into that. Don't automatically assume that that's the 12-year-old just aged another 3 years. It might be a completely different blend. Probably is a different blend of rums in there, or different various amounts of Port Morant versus Enmore versus Versailles that's gone in there. But for me, and this is not just because of price, because you the guys should know full well that I really do enjoy my cheaper rums as well, my £20-25 rums. For me, this is actually vastly superior these days. I really do enjoy the 15. And the last sort of tasting note I'll leave you with, banana. And that is kind of what I used to get in that. So it's an interesting one for me. I will visit that in a sort of review video in a few weeks' time. Maybe like 5-6 weeks' time, because I've got a few to film here. I think the 12 is solid. I really, really do. It's a weird one for me. As I've just said, it used to be 12 the be all and end all. Now for me, actually, I'm not overwrought by the 12. I much prefer the 15. The 15 is right on my wavelength, on my palate. The tropical fruits are there. It's less varnish, less. It's almost like 3 years extra in a barrel have kind of lost that sort of varnishy, woody, peppery bite and just opened it out into this lovely sort of vanilla-y, fruity. Still, don't get me wrong, you've still got that sort of wooden Demerara kind of vibes coming through there. But for me, it's just actually a much more enjoyable rum.